this is very interesting for all of us, right? As Kirsten will be presenting to us case studies in prevention, a psychotherapy approach to obsession. Just one quick thing, Kirsten. I don't want to take too much time from your talk and your presentation, but yesterday I was rereading a chapter, I believe it's chapter 30 or 31 of the book Messengers, where one of the Telesforo is the name of the person who actually works in Mansão Paz, or Campo da Paz. That is the name of the colony or the location where they help many spirits. And one of the things that he said, that after denying the fact that he could help André Luis and Vicente because they were doctors in the physical realm when they were reincarnated, was exactly it. That we have a lot of trouble with prevention. We get into the problem and then we want the red pill, right? The quick pill to fix things. So talking about prevention is an amazing thing, right? Because when we can detect things, work a little bit faster, besides or instead of getting to the problem and then try to resolve. But I will not take your time because I know you will bring us a lot of information. So no further, please.
Thank you so much, Leo. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world, watching on the web, and everyone here. Yeah, thank you, Leo, for that introduction. And I have to give a plug to this amazing book. This book was actually published in June 1983. That was 42 some odd years ago. 42 years ago, this book was published, probably penned, psychographed some months or so prior to that actually being published, but reflecting 42 years and the messages that Philomena, as he's referred to in the book, or Mr. Miranda, shares in this book is as ever relevant as it was, I'm sure, 42 years ago and will be in the 50 years. If you're not familiar, this is the latest, or the first English edition. You can get your copy on Amazon. It's published by Leal Publisher, which is, Leal Publisher. But the original title in Portuguese was, I'm going to try to say it. I shall butcher it. It's so hard for me to say. I should practice. Painéis da obsessão. Painéis. I can't say the word. Yeah. No, yeah, it's, anyway. I digress, yes. It's not my first language. Facets and patterns of obsession. I mean, it's a thrilling book. Please get your copy, Portuguese or English, whichever, but it's in English. So for those of you who don't read Portuguese, I mean, it's just like, I can't put the book down. And really, Manoel de Miranda, his whole series of books that he wrote through Divaldo, a large number of them, a fair amount, I would say, have been recently translated in the last year or so, give or take, into English. I spoke about other books. All you need to do is to do a search on Amazon and you can find it. Okay, I digress. Had to plug the book. Friends, what is something that you can think of right now, off like first thing that comes to your mind? What's the best feeling? Gioni said peace of mind. Anyone else? Love. Anybody else? Gratefulness. All right. All those things are great. You know, when you first see your child being born, all those things are wonderful and fantastic. But one of the biggest things at the end of the day, if we don't have peace of mind, peace in our conscience, there's no real joy. Or our joy is lessened because that deep shadow, as Jung called it, within us. Although we may not remember the specifics of our past lives, as Joanna D'Angelo says, we have emotional remembrances. And many times in cases of obsession, which is nothing other than two pieces of a puzzle fitting perfectly together. So I, opening myself up due to, and which we're going to talk about, not being watchful of my emotions, my thoughts. I would get, if I get angry or any type of emotional imbalance, it opens up a little crack, we would say, in our energy field. And sometimes, and we're going to talk about this, we talk about the different types of obsession: simple obsession, then fascination and subjugation. And oftentimes we think, well, perhaps maybe up until this point, you might have thought of obsession as, well, sometimes people just have simple obsessions, and then you can read about or hear about cases of really, I would say not end stage, but really perverse obsession, really dramatic, really involved. But what we forget is how we get from A to B. Because the person that has reached the level of insanity, once upon a time, was at step A with a small crack. And sometimes we can live our whole lives with that little small crack, and we get some spiritual disturbances here and there. But due to our own complexities, our own past lives tendencies and past life histories with other spirits, it can really get us into a bad situation. So if you take away nothing from today, we would really like to impress upon you the following. No matter what you do, what you read, just take this one thing home. Work on your feelings. Joanna says this. Work on your feelings. Work on your emotions. Work where you're at. And what's amazing nowadays is AI. Fantastic. Plugged into AI, what I was looking for, what my needs are, what I feel like I struggle with in a spiritual sense. And I asked AI to create, and based off my busy schedule, mom of 4, work full time, go to the center 3 days a week, to create a schedule for me. And it blew my mind that AI created for me different intervals throughout the day where I can do meditations, visualizations, prayer, and times for study. And it's fantastic. So really, we have no excuse to say, well, I can't afford a therapist. And some people generally cannot. We have AI. We have so many tools, YouTube and things we can watch. But I printed out, this was the personal healing commitment, breaking obsessive ties. This is just a daily spiritual vigilance, creating your psychic shield. This is what I want you to take away today. Create a new habit here on out to work on yourself. This is the preventative measure, whether you are currently in a simple or more advanced stage of obsession, because oftentimes we don't even know, because the spirits say that the true pandemic is obsession in this world. It is happening at the greatest numbers we've ever seen, and we are wildly unaware. Wildly unaware. And this is not to scare us, but to wake us up. And in the beginning of this book, in the introduction of this book, Manoel, Philomena de Miranda, I mean, it's amazing. We brought this small little, and apologies for the long text, but it's just so good. He says the following: based on one's mental construct, cells are stimulated or bombarded. Think about that. They're either stimulated or they're bombarded by the influx of interests that either promote health or give rise to imbalances deriving from disharmony. It causes the cells in the mitotic process, and we brought a picture of here. If you remember microbiology or high school, or maybe your any science class, you would have learned some of these basic stages of cell development. One of those phases, mitosis, and all these things. So he says it causes the cells during this mitotic process to degrade, allowing the invasion of pathological bacteria, which then outweigh the immune system that have been disabled or weakened by the continuous waves of moodiness, pessimism, revolt, hatred, jealousy, lasciviousness, which is fancier way to say lustful, as well as addictions of any kind that turn into powerful agents of disturbance and suffering. So in the physical realm, although we can't see germs, if I go like this, and if I were to take a Q-tip and put it on some agar and look under a microscope, I may at some point see some sort of bacteria or some type of cells that were there, right? So we know that that's a thing. Germs exist. But what we don't necessarily always know is that in as much as we have germs here in the physical realm, we have it in the spiritual realm as well. And they can make us sick as well. And all of it depends on us. So I'm going to go through 2 cases. That's where I'd like to spend a majority of my time because I think it's very illustrative. And then we're going to go through a very brief highlight of what obsession is, how to mitigate it, how to prevent it, and how to live our day-to-day lives in this preparatory preventative process in the same way that I'm sure if you've ever seen a doctor in your lifetime as an adult, hopefully they have said to you, eat well, get sleep, exercise, drink more water, stay away from processed foods, all the things that make sense. Be healthy, walk for 30 minutes a day. Why does the doctor tell you that? For our well-being, yeah. To prevent us from getting sick. The only thing that they're missing is this spiritual, emotional aspect of mental hygiene, prayer, how are you feeling, what's going on with you, check in with yourself, what's happening to you when you're experiencing a bad situation, what's happening in your physical body, because that's where you'll be able to tell where that disturbance is, and what's happening in your emotional side. Okay, recently we gave a talk at the Spiritus Maryland Symposium, and we brought this case. If you haven't watched it, I recommend you go back and watch. If not, that's okay, you'll hear it here. In this book, Facets and Patterns of Obsession, in chapter 4, Dr. Lustosa, which is the spirit doctor, is walking around with Philomena, the spirit author of the book, and they come across this really a case that draws a lot of attention because of the image that Philomena comes across. And it is something similar to this. It's these 3 souls. The one on the bed is incarnate. The one, I should have a pointer, but I don't. The one right here, obviously, is a discarnate, and this is also another discarnate. And allow me to read Philomena's words. Dr. Lustosa's words. He says, "This sick man is a former slave master who delighted in making justice with his own hands, having personally drowned in the waters of the old Paraiba River several of those who lived under his oppression. And now here he is, atoning for his crimes through this illness, experiencing in these tormenting circumstances the direct persecution of some discarnate enemies that were not able to forgive him, even after almost 180 years since the existence on the earth as a slave owner. So almost 200 years. And this scene was described in the book quite drastic. This gentleman was suffering from something called pulmonary tuberculosis. You can look it up. It's an ailment that largely is, I won't say fully eradicated, but it's treatable nowadays. You don't see it as wildly, especially in developed countries, because now we have testing for it and we have medication for it, so it doesn't go too far. But in the early 1900s, in the southern part of Brazil, existed this sanatorium, which is the place where this whole book all things take place. So here you have this gentleman who goes unnamed, and he's dying of tuberculosis. And in the scene, he's coughing up lots and lots of blood. And it's such a horrific scene. And there's obviously nurses in the room, people trying. But on the spiritual side of things, you have his obsessor, who was his former slave. And then this woman, this angelic woman, who really caught his eye. And allow me to read this. He says, "She is the mother of the unfortunate persecutor. Both have been sold to this man, who in a fit of wrath separated them for no reason. He acquired the mother and her son on his farm, and for no other reason than it brought him joy to separate the son and the mother, which is it happened quite often in the times of slavery. So he sold the mother to somebody else, and he stuck with the son. The mother, she immediately was accepting. She resigned herself. She had already been spiritually prepared prior to reincarnating. She had asked to be reincarnated as a slave. So she already had this emotional, spiritual maturity. But her son, no. Her son wasn't even 18 years old yet. And what happened is that this slave was very rebellious, understandably, and he plotted to run away. But his master, who was his current incarnate man, caught wind of it and decided to bring him to the whipping post and call his mother back to watch. And to watch as they whipped her son. They would whip him. And you have to imagine this as a mother watching your son, your child, go through this, and you could do nothing. And you're watching your slave master with a smile on his face as he's having your son whipped half to death. And every time the son would pass out, and if you're not familiar with a whipping post, what they did, you can look it up on Google. I don't recommend it at all. It's pretty horrible and inhumane and horrific and traumatizing to those who experience it and anyone who has to even, look at, but it's the reality. So the whipping post, they often would tie them to this post. You'd be tied, similar to what they did to Jesus when they whipped him. Or I think they whipped him. I digress. So they whipped him. Every time he would fall, he would pass out. The slave owner would have one of his workers throw salt water on his back, because the pain, if you've ever had a cut and you put your hand in salt water, it's like that sting. But imagine that times a million on your back, and it wakes you up after you faint, and your mother watches all this. And then finally, when they continue to whip him, he's near death. The slave owner, the master, he unties him, carries him over to the Paraíba River, and drowns him. All the while, I was looking over at the mother and drowns him. And he does this, not just with this case, it's with others, because this is not his only enemy. But this is what he does. And now because reincarnation and the reparative process, before he was even born, he already was coming back to this life already with so many debts, already predisposed. This is just one case, and it's one case in this book. They don't go super into all the specifics, but this is just one case. But the next case I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to go through the different types of obsessions. I want you to keep these cases in the back of your mind. Now, picture this. I'm going to do the following. Picture this, okay? Dr. Lustosa and Philomena are leaving this sanatorium. A sanatorium at the time in 1900s in Brazil and here in the US was like a makeshift hospital / hotel. Depending, they had different grades, depending upon how rich you were or not. You'd have a really fancy hotel, hospital suite or not. So Dr. Lustosa is telling Philomena, like, we're going to go outside, and notices this couple. It's a pregnant woman, an older man, and another gentleman. And he says, oh, well, the young gentleman, he has just overcome a year's worth of being sick in this hospital. Likely, they don't say specifically, but likely it was from tuberculosis. And they're all happy. They're excited. They're like, wow, yes, the two men were related. They were brothers. These two men were brothers. And this is his wife. This is his second marriage. And they're expecting their first child. Super excited. The brother is better. She's excited because her brother-in-law is feeling better. He's almost completely healed. They're going to go home. They're expecting their baby any day now. Couldn't be happier. What happens? They all get into a car and start leaving the sanatorium. In this particular area in Brazil, they're going down these curved, windy roads, and over to the side is a cliff. As they're going down these roads, they're talking, they're laughing, they're super excited about talking about plans for the future. And all of a sudden, the older man sees this horrific image. And it's an image of his first wife who had died many years prior. And it scared him. So imagine you're on this road, there's a cliff, you're near a cliff. The spirit, his discarnated wife, makes herself visible to him. He loses control of the car, veers off the cliff. And it's really graphic in the book too. Amanade, I don't know how to say that name. Let's call her Amy. She dies almost immediately, falls out of the car. Horrible situation. Her brother-in-law, Jaime, same thing, dies almost instantly. Egberto is near death, but he does not die. Ernestina and her minions provoked this accident because she had been obsessing her husband, because she was angry and jealous that he had remarried. How dare he? And she was waiting and working on the opportunity to ruin them. And Sister Angelica, who is a common thread throughout this book, one of the mentors, is also there. And you might say, well, the mentors are all watching this. They can't do anything. Free will. Later, Dr. Lustosa says, I've been following this case for a long time. And you might think, that's so horrible. Ernestina had so much hatred, she ended 2 lives, technically 3, because the baby in the womb, who she was weeks away from giving birth, obviously the baby dies in utero as well. But who were these people from the past? Well, the current wife, Ernestina, in a previous life, worked for this rich couple, today's Egberto and Amy. She was known at this time, she was one of those, and Brazil passed a law, late 1800s or early 1900s, where it was called born free. So basically, if you were born of a slave, but there was a law that was passed that you'd be born free. So slavery was being abolished, in essence. So she was freed, but still working for this rich white couple. And this Amanade, again, let's call her Amy, she was a rich, spoiled wife, Dr. Lustosa tells. And she was married to Egberto. He was a rich landowner with little morality, often had many escapades on the side his wife wasn't that aware of, but she was kind of cruel. So one day they were having dinner, and Ernestina, she was the maid, she was the servant. She came and she gave them dinner, placed it. And Egberto, being the man of the world, commented to his wife, "Oh, look at how beautiful this young lady is. Her figure is so perfect and beautiful. Her breasts are voluptuous, whatever his word." And Amy, Amanade, being a refined, educated woman, maintained her smile, but inside of herself, she began to scheme. The next day, something very unusual happened. Remember, she's rich. She has cooks and cleaners and butlers and maids and all these people in her house. But that next day, she decided, I'm going to cook my husband a delicacy. She cooks him up a delicacy, puts some spices. Her husband comes home. They eat dinner. He begins to eat it, and he says, "Wow, this tastes really different. This is good. This is really different." You say, "Oh yes, it's a delicacy." And he says, "Oh, well, what is it?" And she said, "Well, dear husband, I love you so much that yesterday when you commented on the voluptuous body of Ernestina, I decided that you should eat it." And he goes sort of pale. She had asked one of her workers, who is the modern day Jamie, the brother-in-law, to cut off the breasts of her worker out of spite, jealousy, hatred, and served it to her husband. Her husband, in complete shock, ran out to the maid's quarters and saw her bleeding out, and she passed the following day. In this life, Ernestina married Egberto. And when she passed away suddenly, after a few years of marriage, he encountered his old wife from before. See, we think we meet people by chance. They were attracted back to each other to pay back debts. Ernestina, with her immense hatred, not even remembering fully, continued with that hatred, plotting and scheming everything to ruin their happiness. But you might be thinking, was all of this purely her fault? Who's to blame for all of this? Well, obsession is like puzzle pieces. Obsession only happens when those puzzle pieces fit perfectly together. It's sort of like a wall plug and a plug. I'm forgetting the actual name of a wall plug. It's not coming to me. Those two things have to match. Like if I take my Brazilian hairdryer that I use in Brazil, try to plug it into this wall socket, it's not going to work. The same is with obsession. If an spirit obsessor comes near me and is spewing a lot of negativity, but I'm at a different emotional level, it's not going to affect me. They'll just kind of be there in the ether. But because they had familial connections from the past and this current life, and Amy, with her unconscious guilt, all of that, we attract this and open up cracks to allow things of this nature to happen. And for sure, this probably isn't the first incarnation where this is the only drama happening. But for our understanding, yes, there are 3 generalized types of obsession. But nothing is ever so fitting into one particular box. Is it possible that there's a simple obsession are there different grades? For sure. Some are more simple, some are more advanced. Not everything fits into a cookie cutter mold, but for our understanding and Kardec's classification, these are the 3 primary forms. There's simple obsession, and it is what it sounds like, a spirit's unwelcome constant communication or influence, fascination. This is when the spirit obsessor clouds the medium's or the victim's judgment, causing them to find the absurdity reasonable or error sublime. And subjugation, the spirit obsessor paralyzes the will of the victim, leading to physical or moral constraint. And I'm trying to see if we have the book here, and it's an older book. It's called Obsession. The actual book is called Obsession. Is it there? No, not that. This is a similar author by Divaldo, where they talk about a 15-year-old girl who gets subjugated. And it first presents itself at her 15th, I think it's a birthday party, and she completely becomes insane. And for all the onlookers at her party, they're all looking at her like, oh my gosh, she just flipped that from one minute to the next. But throughout the book, you see that it was a slow, gradual process where the spirit obsessor slowly began to work on her. And so what they do is quite alarming. They will follow us, take notes, create a record of our weaknesses and strengths. And off of that, they build a whole attack plan. So that's why it's so important for us to work on ourselves. Joanna says it, work on your feelings. They are the thermometer for where we are. And this, what I said at the beginning, create a plan to work on your spirituality, on your mental health. It's so important because those are the causes. We find the causes within ourselves, the moral deficits, and the law of affinity. We can only get in tune with the level that we're at. Also, past life debts and revenge also play a part, as we've seen. But also there's this lack of vigilance in prayer. There's this spiritual apathy. They talk about it in the book. Mental laziness becomes a magnet for spirit obsessions, inducements. When we just, and this happens so subtly, we're not even going to notice it unless we're super attentive to our own mind and our thoughts. Not in an obsessive way, but a way to say, is this thought good or bad? Should I, really analyzing how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way? And how do we become mentally lazy? Not creating the habit. Not creating things like these. And it doesn't have to be so extensive like this. It could be a simple practice in the morning or at night. And just for our awareness, which majority of us already know, obsession is an interaction governed by the law of affinity. Minds tune into minds with similar vibrations. And just as a reminder, and like I said, I think most of us know this, but there's these 4 types of 4 directions of obsessive influence. There's discarnate to incarnate, incarnate to discarnate, discarnate to discarnate, and incarnate to incarnate. So you can be living in this physical realm and you could have someone in your life that's an obsessor, or, unbeknownst to many, we often think it's always the other person, and it may be us, unbeknownst to us. Some additional insights from this book. The paraspiritual and biological damage, what we discussed in the beginning. What happens is slow and insidious. It's insidious because the obsessor spirit, who was nothing more than usually our victim from the past, someone who we've wronged, what they do is that this continuous mental bombardment. And that bombardment will affect the cells of our body. Obsession and disease. We talked about this in the first slide. Strongly links the genesis of physical illness to emotional disequilibrium. That's where it starts. It can be provoked by obsessive influences, but it also can just start with us. Now, we say all this to say, this isn't for us to judge other people and say, oh, look, they're sick, they did something. No. Spiritism is not here for us to go and point fingers. It's meant for us to look at ourselves and say, how can I be better? Because there's nothing better than a clear conscience. Self-induced imagery. This is quite scary. So let's talk about this. How many of you have ever watched a horror film? If you don't want to say that you have and admit to it, that's fine. I'll close my eyes. The imagery that you've watched from that horror movie is archived in our brains. And I will admit it, I've watched many in my lifetime. Yeah. Mostly as a child, hiding it from my parents. I won't even name the names. You all know the names of many horrible Halloween movies. Those images get archived in our brains. When a spirit obsessor wants to freak you out, they use their little spirit mouse. They find the file in your head, brain, soul, whatever you want to call it. They open up the file and boom, there's the image. Sometimes we'll get these images out of nowhere. In psychology, in the pathological clinical anxiety disorder, there's some other sub-disorders. I don't know, Paul, if I can call it a sub-disorder. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's under the umbrella of anxiety disorders. These individuals can experience possibly some of this, something called intrusive thoughts, where these thoughts come to you out of nowhere and they're terrifying and they're scary. And sometimes most of the time when we think of OCD, people think of hand washing repeatedly or locking the doors. It's not always just that, folks. There's a spectrum. But what's really fascinating in the book, what they say, is this self-obsession that we, because of guilt, fear, and self-worth as well, we actually can create this loop in our mind, creating these images, fearing for our lives, because it's the guilt that's echoing from before. This is why, again, working on ourselves is so vital in this process. Primary prevention is that, working on ourselves. The problem with obsession is not finding ways to help the patient or getting resources. That's not the issue. The issue is for the obsessed to want to change. I'm going to give you an example. Do you guys want an example? Okay. My husband has been sick for several days with a bronchial cough, with wheezing. And as a nurse, I know all the signs. Should be treated with steroid and other things which can only be prescribed by a physician. And every day I say to him, you should go to the doctor. No, I'm fine. Okay. Yes. Now, this is a funny, comical way to illustrate when you want to help someone, but they don't want the help. Luckily, my dear husband at least takes medicine. But the point is, within this book, within other spiritist literature, from a spiritist perspective, the greatest struggle is getting the person who's ill to want to get better. It's the same thing with addicts. The issue is not lack of resources or support in our communities. And I've worked with addicts for over 10 years. It's getting them to want to change because you're so entangled in that. And this is what Kardec tells us in the Genesis. To guarantee ourselves against obsession, we have to fortify our soul. We have to fortify ourselves. If I tell you tomorrow, Dennis, I forget the area and that you study or that you've studied. Let's pretend it's bioengineering. Close? No, right? No, okay. Let's say this bioengineering, and I want you to, what's that? Engineering. Okay, it's close. Okay, kind of close. I tell you, okay, Dennis, I'm going to send you on this special trip, and this trip you're going to work with specifically mechanical engineers and electrical engineers engineering a new product for the healthcare field. And you might go, that sounds really cool, Kirsten, but I have no training in that. Let's pretend you don't have training. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So I say to you, Dennis, my friend, take this. You're going to take this course. You're going to fortify your knowledge because you have a basis already in engineering. And before I send you, I forgot to tell you, yeah, you're going to take this course first. So you fortify yourself. And once you have that knowledge stays with you. And once you go there to your project, you will utilize that knowledge to be a part of the team and create that product. One problem, though. That's in the intellectual world, right? That's easy enough. My daughter is studying in nursing school and she's doing internships at the ICU. So she's utilizing the knowledge that she's getting from her classes and applying it in real time. That's great. That makes sense. But that doesn't always translate to our spiritual life. In this book, they say there's a problem of verbalism, where we talk all nice things, and we love the spiritist doctrine. We love if the idea of it is so grand and so great, and we want everyone else in our life to know about it and learn about it. We want to spread it like wildfire in the world. But Dr. Lustos in this book says, but it's a problem because people just stay there. They talk about it, they think it's great, but when it comes to their own inner transformation, it stops there. And I'm just saying, this is just statistics, folks. Don't get mad at the messenger, please. There's a lot of cases where there are a lot of certain genders that have anger issues and these things. But as we saw, no one is immune. Ernestina, previously wronged, in current life, it was her first husband, who, by the way, in the book, they say she loved him at one point. She really loved him. She had made an honest attempt to unconsciously make amends in this life. And the same with the second wife as well. Everyone was trying to a degree. But some get stuck. Do any of you own any pieces of artwork? No, that's fine. Let's pretend you do. Let's pretend one of you has a Picasso at home. Beautiful. Every time someone comes by, you show it to them. You say, wow, even if it's just a replica, look at my replica of this Picasso. It's beautiful. But it doesn't really do anything. I mean, A, it's a replica. B, it's cool, especially if you're an art enthusiast. But it doesn't really do anything. It's the same with the spiritist knowledge. If it just sits there in a pretty frame, like those flowers there, it's beautiful. Love to see it. It's inspiring, and we love to be surrounded by these things. But if I don't take those flowers into my soul and modify them, they are all for nothing. Another major preventative primate prevention in obsession is practicing charity and goodness. We don't want to skip over that. Find ways to be charitable. We're not talking about almsgiving. We're not talking about donating hundreds of dollars, which is great. We're talking about finding ways in our day in and day out of our lives to be altruistic, to be kind, to show goodness, to show love. And having prayer and gospel at the home, some sort of activity where you are dedicating to your spirituality. And Dr. Lustosa tells us positive concentration frees the mind from vicious fixations. There was a CD that was published. I'm sorry, I'm coming out of frame, Daniel. I think it's the spiritual and mental health or the therapy visualizations. One of those was one of those were shared for, I digress, let me go back. One of the meditations talks about, Joanna starts out with saying that most of our problems are a problem of fixation. We're fixated on a problem, we're fixated on an idea, we're fixated on this thing, and we get tunnel vision. And all that is it can be a sign of a simple obsession. And in those CDs, those meditations, she talks about letting go of your fixed ideas, opening your mind up to more positive things. And positive concentration can look like meditation, can look like prayer, can look like many things. So with that, we felt the best thing for us to do as a sort of practicum for our day-to-day lives, and to kind of get us started, get our feet wet on how we could work towards either preventing or mitigating any emotional imbalance. In this book, they said that there's a pandemic of obsessions happening, and a lot of the cases come from guilt. Unconscious guilt that we carry from one life to the next to the next. And that is what is alarming, is the unconscious part of it. Jung said, if we do not bring light to our shadows will drive and control what we do. In layman's terms, if we don't make peace with ourselves, we will be driven by things unseen and unknown. And as an FYI, or as a side note, this isn't an attempt or a promotion for us to go and do past life regression. If you're in a situation where you feel like that, to each their own. But this is something simple that we can do, beginning daily. A meditation for healing, for self-forgiveness. You might say, Kirsten, but I don't really remember anything. Sometimes the subtleties of our past lives and the emotions we carry are so subtle we may not recognize it as such. So I ask you, have any of you done anything wrong on like a small scale, like kicked your dog, Maybe that's really bad. No one wants to admit to that. Kirsten, come on, another example. If you've ever like yelled at your child and then later you're like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that." I remember my mother yelling at me one time because in Portuguese she had said to me, our 1,000 years ago, our shower and it had a tub with it had been broken. So my mother said, "Don't take a bath, get a shower, because if you take a bath, it's going to leak the water downstairs." So that night she came and said, "Kirsten," in Portuguese, she said, "Did you get a bath?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a bath." But not realizing that she had mixed up her words with bath and shower. And I really did get a shower. And I also mixed up bath and shower, still to this day. So she was thinking that I got a bath. And I was saying, "No, I got a shower." Wrong words. So I got in, let me just tell you, a lot of trouble for that. And then probably about an hour later, I'm sitting in my room, super confused, and I hear a knock at my door. And my mom comes in, who might be watching, humbly comes in and says, "Hey, remember earlier when I asked you, did you get a bath?" And you said, "Yes, I got a bath." And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Did you get a shower? Or did you bathe in the bathtub?" I said, "I got a shower." She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And the look on her face, I've never forgotten it. It's been 30 some odd years. The look of guilt on her face was so immense. And I really couldn't understand it as a 10-year-old, like, "Okay, Mom, you made a mistake." But you can imagine if there's anything in your life that you've done, something minuscule, and you feel like really bad for it, and you're aware of it, imagine the guilt that you know that you've done in the inner recesses of your mind, how badly you carry that guilt with you. I say all that to say we feel super bad about the smallest things. We can only imagine that deep within our souls, we still carry things from a past life that were more severe. So let us do this meditation. I'm going to ask Daniel to play some nice music. I'm going to walk us through this meditation, and then we're going to transition to our passes moment. All right, let's get into a comfortable position. Relaxing our arms. Relaxing our shoulders and our legs. And let us be 100% present in this moment. Let us take anything we may have in our hands and set it aside for this moment, because we deserve this moment to ourselves to heal. Closing your eyes gently and allowing all the worries of your demanding day, work, responsibilities, the noise to simply melt away. Begin to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just pay attention to your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Begin to breathe in slowly and deeply. Inhaling peace and exhaling tension. Inhale the light of divine mercy, and exhale any pressure or self-criticism. Feel your body settle, more grounded and completely safe in this moment. Now, turn your awareness inward to the deepest, most quiet part of your spirit. We're going to visualize the source of your guilt or anything that is troubling you currently. Imagine that part of you, the part that is burdened by past errors, current life or otherwise. Imagine that part of you, the part that is relentless with its self-judgment or by unconscious shame. This part of you may look like something. It might take the form of the image of your younger self, sad or frightened version of yourself, or perhaps a shadowy form, or simply a heavy, aching spot on your chest. Whatever form it takes, hold no judgment. This is your inner self, carrying a spiritual weight. Look at this image with tenderness, with love, with compassion. Now, as your present, strong, conscious self, gently approach this burdened inner self. Walk up to it. If it is a child, kneel down to meet their gaze. If it's a heavy shadow, place your hands on it. Your only intention is to offer unconditional love. Feel the warmth of pure, non-judgmental love flowing from your heart, wrapping around this part of you. Acknowledge the pain it has carried. Acknowledge the deep spiritual effort it has made. Now, speak the language of absolute forgiveness. You may speak silently or whisper softly to yourself. Repeat these powerful words of self-forgiveness, making them your truth. You can say what comes to your mind that you feel intuitively to say to this part of yourself from a place of love. Or you can also say, "My soul, I see your pain. I see your fear. I forgive you completely for every mistake you've ever made in this life or in any other. I forgive you for the mistakes you believe you are about to make. You are loved unconditionally by the divine source. You are not the guilt or the sorrow you carry. You are a spirit that strives for good. I release this burden. You are safe. We are moving forward together in light and peace." Embrace this part of you. Send it love. And feel the lightness that comes with this forgiveness. Sense that weight has lessened, and the inner self is now calmer, accepting your mercy. Bring your attention back to your entire self. Visualize a beautiful protective sphere of vibrant, peaceful light surrounding you, a shield of divine love. Any negative thoughts, any remnants of guilt, simply bounces off this shield. You are protected. You are loved. You are forgiven. Hold this feeling of peace for a moment. Hold. When you are ready, slowly deepen your breath. Gently wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. Carry this peace, this self-forgiveness into the rest of your day and week. With that, we thank our dear Creator. We thank our spirit benefactors for this moment together to remind us that we are children of God, destined, made for joy and happiness. Let us have the courage to face our shadows and to live a life full of joy and happiness. Dear God, may you free and awaken all those who are ready. Bless and guide those who are lost in darkness. In both realms of life, across this globe, in different cities and countries, we ask that you send your loving vibrations, your healing, your messengers of love and light. And again, as always, we are grateful for this moment together, and so be it. Now we will ready ourselves for the moment of passes. Keep your mind in this meditative moment. And we call our past givers to come and serve at the front.